My name is Tanya Conte. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of English and the curator of the Riverrun Global Film Series. The goal of our global film series is to create a dialogue between the University at Buffalo, other local institutions of higher education, and the Buffalo community through screenings of films that provide a better understanding of our globalized, networked world. Over the past 3 years, the Global Film Series, held at the Virtual Penny Art Center, has offered an authentic and rich cultural and cinematic experience to the larger Buffalo community.
When we were doing the Irish Film Festival, it was pretty evident, and increasingly so, that there were other global factors involved in Irish film. A lot of the films were about the immigrants who were working in Ireland at that time. And so we really wanted to expand to an approach that allowed us to address all of those kinds of issues, to talk about cross-cultural relationships. So I discussed that with Chris Miller, who was the chair of the English department. Riverrun does a lot of work with the English department at UB. Sort of expressed to her what I was looking for. And she said, well, it just so happens that we have a new professor coming in, Tanya Conte, who focuses on exactly this kind of thing, global film and the relationships of films of different cultures. Chris and I talked a bit about what such a program might entail, kind of got the basic idea for it, and then we met with Tanya, and Tanya then kind of produced a more comprehensive and detailed plan for how it would go. We then from there just kind of figured out how to do the program, the duration of the program, the kinds of films we'd be looking for, what sort of context we would have them in terms of panelists and discussion and so forth. And so in 2016, we started.
When we had a meeting about what these folks wanted to do, it fit in with what our mission is, being inclusive of all cultures in our community. The Birchfield Penny Art Center is a museum for Western New York arts. And so what we try to do as much as possible is incorporate various communities. And so this fit in with, okay, there's an Iranian community here, there's a Cuban community here, there's a Mexican community here. It was perfect for that.
One of the things that was central to the idea was to focus on a country that had a great cinematic tradition. So in the first year we decided to go with Iran. Iran has had great film in recent years and great film for a long time. And we had some particular films that we were interested in. So we began there.
Good evening, I'm Tanya Conte, and I'm the curator of the Riverrun Global Film Series. I would like to open our inaugural film series on this inspiring note, which reflects our belief in promoting a cross-cultural understanding through the artistic medium of film. 2016 and 2017, the Global Film Series highlighted Iran and Cuba, respectively, while in 2018, the focus was on Mexican cinema and culture with the theme of borders and immigration. In its inaugural year, the film series hosted 2 special guests. One of them was Hamid Nafisi, Northwestern University prize-winning scholar of cultural studies and post-colonial cinema and media, and also the father of Iranian animation, Nuruddin Zarenkalk. He's currently the Hamad bin Khalifa Al-Thani Professor in Communication at Northwestern University in the Department of Radio, Film and Television. Professor Nafisi's keynote address was entitled Rising from the Ashes, Iranian Art House Cinema. Anne-Marie Stock, Professor of Hispanic Studies and Vice Provost for Academic and Faculty Affairs
at the College of William and Mary, was the film series speaker in 2017. She gave a talk on cameras in Cuba, reflections on revolutionary cinema.
And again, as last year, I want to thank Tanya. Over the years, I've participated in many conferences and symposia, many of them designed by large groups of people. There are a few I've been part of that are as complex, various, and ranging as this. And you're a one-man industry, and you're
A very timely theme of the 2018 Global Film Series, Mexican Cinema and Culture, Bending Borders, sought to highlight the immigration crisis on our southern border. Films such as Symphony of a Sad Sea, Devil's Freedom, and Inheritors provided a Mexican rather than American view of immigration crisis. And I think it helped to better understand the plight of migrants and refugees from any land. A special section documenting the border showcased recent short films about the US-Mexico border. It was followed by a panel of local community experts who talked about the questions of migration and immigration. The panelists discussed alternative scenarios and possible viable futures of cross-border communication and settlement. The panel began with the spiritual recitation of Mexican poetry by Mara Odette Guerrero, and it also featured recent images of the border taken by Professor Richard Reidsma from Canisius College.
And he cannot cry, because to cry will mean the waste of his own wetness. To cry will mean to stop, to think, to differentiate the liquids moving down his face. To cry will mean to cry, so he goes on. And this is a common story.
In the past, the Global Film Series included such sections as Restored Classics, and many films in this section were restored by the World Cinema Foundation, but also women filmmakers, LGBTQ films, environment, animation and short films, Mexico and minors, Buñuel in Mexico, experimenting with the borders, and many others. The Global Film Series screens films of exceptional quality, both restored classics and then also the most recent cutting-edge features, documentaries, and short films. In the selection process for the films, an emphasis is always made on screening very rare and not readily available films. With recent films, preference has been given to films which are not yet in wide circulation and which can potentially be Western New York premieres. To provide contextual grounding for the country in focus, each year the Global Film Series invites a keynote speaker. In 2018, the keynote speaker was Professor of Spanish, Latin American Studies, and Film and Media Studies, Ignacio Sanchez Prado, from Washington University in St. Louis. He delivered a lecture on Mexico's contemporary binational cinema, from migrations to co-productions.
Well, Mexican cinema is a major cinema that has a strong relationship to the United States. A lot of the cinema is binational because it appeals both to Mexicans and Mexican Americans. So one of the reasons why it matters is because it's related to both the country next door and the largest immigrant community in the United States. And people tend to not really see a lot of Mexican production. What people see usually is either stuff by Mexican directors produced by Hollywood, or things like the film Coco, which is produced by Disney, with Mexican American talent for sure. But really, the power is in a U.S. corporation. It's not really in the Mexican cultural producers. And I think that, being Mexican and Mexican immigration to the US has become very politically polarized in these days. And that polarization is also in part based in ignorance on the complexity of Mexican culture and who the Mexican people are. And I think that cinema is one of the vehicles through which a people can express themselves. And I think that the distribution and consumption of Mexican cinema in the US is something that has the potential to sophisticate the perception that people have about Mexico, and all these flat perceptions, positive or negative, that result from all the political speech that we have about immigration, and that just presents a simplified and sometimes aggressive version of what Mexican culture is.
In addition to showing films, we started adding poetry readings, and we started adding, this year we have a children's workshop, and we have started adding food to the cafe, the cooking culture. We keep adding more and more onto it as much as we can. And it seems to work. I thought this is the best year in attendance for sure.
It's been evolving each year. The attendance has been increasing, and the elements of the program have been expanding. We knew that the Birchfield Penny did this kind of all over the gallery programming, especially on the Friday nights, already. In our first year in the Iranian program, we really just did film. We just did film and discussion of film. But our basic intent is to build cross-cultural relationships. There's an intellectual component to that, but there's also a social component to it, an empathetic cultural component to it. So knowing that the Birchfield Penny was good at this kind of thing anyway, and was very welcoming with regard to just having a whole variety of things going on, those don't happen just in the auditorium. They happen all over the gallery at the same time. And so it's an opening for a lot of different kinds of people to get interested and attend.
So this new cultural editions included music by La Marimba. The series also hosted a special book reading for kids, which was led by UB students. And we were reading such books as the Disney Pixar's Coco, of course, but also Living in Mexico and Off We Go to Mexico. And it helped children learn more about Mexico and its cultural traditions. And art sculptures by Mara Odette Guerrero, who's a Mexican-born artist and gallerist. This fall, in 2018, more than 100 parents and children delighted in the Day of the Dead arts workshop, which was centered on characters from Disney's Coco and also led by Mara Odette Guerrero. You might recall that Disney's Coco is actually a film that depicts the crossing of borders as well. Guerrero, who constructed an altar representing the religious and cultural diversity of Mexico, encouraged all the participants to make such arts and crafts as masks, skeletons, papel picado banners, flowers.
Our ancestors believed that there is life after life. So we are here just for some time, and our goal is to go to Itzamina. It is that valley where all the dead go. So they are very happy, and that's why we believe that people who dies, they're as happy as this. Really, I look forward to see the kids, because they really have a lot of imagination, and I learn from them a lot. I would like them to live with the idea that Mexico and United States were friends. We are not enemies. And to know some about Mexico. Mexico has such a rich culture, and it's such an old culture that it is very, very seldom that people in the United States know about it. Unless there are many people that goes over there. That in Mexico there's a large group of Americans living there. But the people who doesn't quite go to Mexico or doesn't quite go to Mexico City or any other towns not in the border, because the border is a mixture of culture, as it is in every border. But so they know what a beauty it is. Mexico is so vast and so pretty. It's just like United States when they're talking about New York City or LA. It's not only that. There are so many other things that this country is so vast and so varied. So that's what Mexico is, the same thing. So really, that's what my goal is, to tell them, this is Mexico. It's many good things and many bad things, but we are the same thing that Americans are. We also are Americans, and we are from North America.
In 2016, the inaugural series enjoyed close to 400 attendees, many of whom frequented all the 3 days of the festival. In 2017, the series welcomed roughly 700 attendees, but in 2018, this number was closer to 800. All participants who evaluated the Global Film Series indicated that this was a very important cultural initiative for the Buffalo community.
I like the complexity is probably not the right word, but the inclusiveness of it. There's animation, there's the classics, the restored classics, also the experimental part of it, the documentary part of it. It touches a lot of genres, and that's what's most appealing to me, is that it brings in a lot of different communities. It's not just like the culture itself, but the genres itself. Documentary people want to come, the animators want to come and see what's going on, and it really expands the audience, and that's really what we're most hopeful about.
Cinema has a global appeal as a medium, and films are produced in great numbers all over the world. But in the US, viewers, students, and sometimes even film scholars do not always have access to the great variety of world cinema that, you might say, has not achieved exorbitant box office success. In the future, and with resources permitting, the Global Film Series plans to pursue its innovative approach and present an even more expansive scope of world cultures and cinemas. And I think that exposure to this important global film gems is indeed like a light shining in a dark room.